50%, a staggering number. The administration of President Donald Trump has just slammed Brazil with a massive tariff, pushing the relationship between the two largest economies in the Americas to the brink of crisis. President Lula da Silva declares it a humiliation and refuses to negotiate. Well, Trump says, just call me anytime. So what is the real story behind this? In today's video, we'll break down all the developments, listen to the original statements from both sides, and analyze the next steps that could determine the future of the entire region.
Trade tensions between the two largest economies in the Americas have escalated dramatically after the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump formally imposed an additional 40% tariff on goods imported from Brazil, bringing the total tariff to 50%. The decision, effective Wednesday, August 6th, was met with a fierce reaction from Brazil and opened a new chapter in the foreign policy of President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. Before the new tariff took effect, President Trump had made an apparently open gesture, stating that President Lula da Silva could call him any time to discuss the friction between the two countries.
Are you open to negotiate with Brazil? The Brazilian President Lula said he would like to call you. He requested a conversation. Would you talk to him now?
He can talk to me anytime he wants.
So are you open to tariffs?
Yeah, he can talk to me anytime he wants.
What is on the table for Brazil?
Well, we'll see what happens, but I love the people of Brazil.
However, once the tariff officially took effect, President Lula flatly rejected the idea, considering it an unacceptable humiliation.
Let me tell you something. A president cannot humiliate himself for another president. I respect everyone. I demand respect towards me.
Eu respeito todo mundo. Eu exijo respeito comigo.
He further explained that the U.S.'s method of imposition violated all civilized diplomatic norms, making a direct call meaningless.
So what is happening? The civilized way for two heads of state to negotiate is to have the will to make the decision along with Brazil. He could have communicated with Brazil. He could have called. He could have proposed a negotiation. But we received the taxation statement in a completely authoritarian manner, and we are not used to negotiating in this way, not like this. At the moment, we still have a lot of people in Brazil trying to talk with Americans. We believe that a country that has 201 years of civilized diplomatic relations will not throw that away because of the intemperate attitude of a president. I didn't call him because he doesn't want to do phone calls. See, I'm not going into an analysis of who and what was said. A day earlier, he was asked during an interview in a Brazilian outlet, "Are you going to talk to Lula?" Not now. I mean, we have our best negotiators trying to talk to their negotiators. So, look, I don't have to call President Trump because in the letters he sent with the decisions, he never talks about negotiations. He speaks of new threats.
In an interview with Reuters, President Lula forcefully asserted Brazil's sovereignty and criticized President Trump's interference in the country's internal affairs. Nevertheless, he affirmed that Brazil would not retaliate in kind, but would instead act responsibly, seeking solutions rather than escalating the conflict.
In the other letter, where he announced the 50%, he literally said, "It's because the government that is ruling Brazil is committing mistakes." He should take care of the United States. We'll take care of Brazil. This country only has one owner, and only one owner rules over the president of Brazil, the people. The people elected and the people can get rid of. So those anti-political and anti-civilized attitudes create a problem that didn't exist in our relationship. But now this is not a small intervention. It's the President of the United States who thinks he can dictate rules over a sovereign country like Brazil. It's not admissible for the United States or any other country, big or small, to give an unsolicited opinion on our sovereignty. Well, what we are not finding is dialogue. When they want to talk, I will talk. Well, I will repeat what I said a moment ago. I will comment. We were working yesterday, we finished a meeting at almost 10 p.m., and we are preparing how to deal with Brazilian companies that are suffering losses because of this agreement. We have to create the conditions to help these companies. We have an obligation to ensure unemployment benefits for those who work for them. We have an obligation to help them find new markets for their products. And we are concerned about convincing U.S. business leaders to fight with President Trump so that he can relax this. I am doing all this when I could announce a tax on U.S. products. I will not do so because I do not want to behave like him. I will not do so because I do not want to behave like President Trump. I want to prove a point. I want to prove that when one does not want to fight, two do not fight. And I do not want to fight with the United States. Obviously, we cannot act as if we are short of money. I cover my head and say I am leaving. It's a loss. People are asking us not to do it. We will do everything in our power for the Brazilian economy, maintaining the fiscal responsibility we have maintained in government. But pay attention. We will do whatever is necessary. We will do whatever is necessary. The only thing I am sure of is that I believe we will find a solution.
Facing U.S. unilateralism, President Lula announced he would gather allies, especially within the BRICS bloc, to build a common front.
There is nothing yet, but there will be. My mother, when we were little and she did not have food to make for us, we were 8 siblings, I never saw her speaking nervously. She would say, "Today there is nothing, but tomorrow there will be." There is no articulation in the BRICS, but there will be. Tomorrow I will call President Modi, then I will call President Xi Jinping, then I will call other presidents, and I'm going to try to discuss with them about how each one is doing in this situation, what the implications are for each country, so we can make a decision. You know, why I entered the union? Because a lone worker negotiating with Mercedes, with Ford, with General Motors, the agreement will always be a bad agreement for the worker and good for the business owner. So I strengthened the union so that collectively we could negotiate. What President Trump is doing is tacit. He wants to dismantle multilateralism where agreements are made collectively within institutions and replace it with unilateralism, where he negotiates one-on-one with other countries. So what bargaining power does a small country have with the United States of America? None. None. So what we want to show is this. Abusive tariffs lead nowhere. I am going to give a message here. Nobody wins. Nobody wins. I am seeing President Trump say, "I have a lot of money." He says that openly. I just want to warn Trump that tariffs will not lead to anywhere. Things will become more expensive for the Brazilian people. Things will become more expensive for the American people. Things will become more expensive for the world. Brazil grew, and as you know, I traveled a lot around the world, and I will continue traveling to open new spaces for Brazil. If the United States does not want to buy, we will look for someone else to sell to. If China does not want to buy, we will look for someone else to sell to. Any country that does not want to buy, we are not going to stay crying because they do not want to buy. We are going to look for others. What happens is that our trade grew a lot. Just so you have an idea, in just 2.5 years, we opened 398 new markets for Brazil. If the negotiation is not resolved, we have other mechanisms to make a counterpart. We have the WTO. We could file a complaint with the WTO. Does it take time? Yes, but it is an instrument that we have to value because we have already won things against the United States in the WTO. We can go alone or we can go with a group of countries, and then Brazil can also take action against American products. What we want first is to use and exhaust all possibilities in negotiation before we take any other measure that means negotiations are over. The United States is creating problems with Mexico. It will want to impose tariffs on Mexico. Brazil will go there to offer opportunities to Mexico to sell and to buy. That is how the world works. That is how, and that is why I defend multilateralism.
Washington's action has caused a wave of outrage among the Brazilian populace. Protesters gathered outside the U.S. consulate in Sao Paulo to express their opposition.
We don't want interference from the United States here in our country. Our country's sovereign. It has a government. It has a constitution. And it needs to be respected. And those who committed crimes, like Bolsonaro, need to be behind bars very soon.
Tariffs, as they were imposed, they are clearly political interference in Brazilian domestic process, both legal and political, and has the clear intention to force Brazil to shift towards the right in the forthcoming presidential elections next year. That's not just a matter of saving Mr. Bolsonaro, but instead to prompt Brazilian electors, voters, to side with the right-wing side of Brazilian politics.
By refusing to retaliate and directing its diplomacy towards the BRICS bloc, the Lula administration is making a strategic move to reposition Brazil's role as more autonomous and committed to multilateralism. This economic crisis has therefore become a geopolitical test with the potential to reshape relations with Washington and the global balance of power.
This is not just a trade war. It's a direct confrontation between President Trump's unilateralism and the multilateral diplomatic strategy pursued by President Lula da Silva. The big question now is, will Brazil's gambit towards the BRICS bloc succeed? How will the business and people of both countries be affected? And is there any way out of this crisis? We will continue to follow and update you in our upcoming videos.